Hi, book two. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I am going to do a review of Geraldine Brooks's March. So this is a book about Mr. March, the father of Meg, Jo, and Beth from Little Women. Now I admit I ended up DNFing Little Women. I had read it a few years ago. It's actually way sometime before we moved here. I was either my late teens or early 20s when I read that book. I do not remember, or 10 to 3, because I got halfway through and I put it down for a period of time, and then when I attempted to pick it up, I just realized, you know what, it's just not for me. It feels very sentimental and just, I hate to use the B word, but kind of boring. And I liked the movie adaptations, the 1994 movie, and then I recently, I have the 2019 movie, and I really enjoy that. In fact, I like that one a little bit better. I mean, I still love the actresses from the 1994 movie, and I still have a soft spot for it, but I kind of lean more towards the 2019. And it's interesting because reading this book and thinking about the casting of Mr. March. Mr. March, the actor who played him, no disrespect to that actor, and I don't even know what else he's done. I don't really have any strong feelings about the actor because there was no attachment. I've never seen him in anything else, but he doesn't fit the role. It was weird. He just seemed like this old, feeble old man, and granted, she says, Marmie, when she sees him again at the end, because she does, I feel like that's not a spoiler, she is gonna end up seeing him again. He's just, like, she does say she doesn't recognize him, and he's aged a lot, but not that much. And he looks like Santa Claus in that version. It's just, what Geraldine Brooks has him do in this book does not. Granted, Little Women was written before this book is a newer book, so only a few years old. But, I mean, it makes sense that these would be what she has in this book. But it's just the guy they cast. I mean, I need to watch it again, but he just seemed like, from what I remember, like Santa Claus figure, like just a feeble old man, and I feel like he wouldn't be that feeble. But now I don't remember who played the dad in the 2019, but he looked the part more than the guy did in the 1994 movie. And granted, maybe because in the original Little Women, he's not a huge. He's just kind of in the background. He doesn't play a huge role. They know he was a chaplain and everything in the war. But from what Geraldine adds to the story in this version, in this story about that character, the 2009 actor fits more to me the way he looks. If that makes any sense. So this is about Mr. March and his time during the Civil War and his struggle with trying to fight to free the black slaves, and also preach the word of God and give these soldiers absolution after all the horrible things they do in the war, to make them feel better about. Because of course in war you're gonna have to do things that will not be nice. Things that will be really ugly and monstrous, and you might kill someone who's innocent or they're not innocent, but they have a family that they left behind. But it is very interesting and very intriguing to read about him, because of course in the original novel it's very sugar-coated and sentimental. We're only at their home, and the girls are pretty sheltered. I mean, they know about what's going on in the world, and in this book, and I don't know if I don't remember in the original book, but we talk about when they're young, because the book goes back and forth between the present day when he's still, when he's on the battlefield, and then the past when he first met Marmie or Margaret, which I didn't know that, but maybe if I had remembered the book, then maybe I would have known that her name was Margaret. But Margaret, when he meets her, and how she was, she tells Joe about how she was just like her, and she's always telling the girls, don't let the sun go down in your anger. And we see that, yeah, that's true, that she was like Joe. She had trouble controlling her temper. And she was very passionate about fighting for the black community and fighting to set the slaves free. And that was the strong, she felt strongly about it. And she could easily snap at people whenever they provoked her, whenever, they said something that she didn't, that she thought was ignorant, and infuriated her. And that Mr. March had to kind of control her temper, help control her temper and, keep her. And there were times when she didn't like that. But then she also kind of realized the value of, his effort to help her tone down her temper, because, of course, the time period for one. And also, it's just not, it's also just, even today, you gotta sometimes let your it's not just about, women are supposed to be all demure and ladylike, and that losing temper is not ladylike, but also by today's standards, no one wants to deal with someone who gets angry and loses their temper, and, and, like, yeah, it's very human to get angry and just snap. But at the same time, it makes you a little less clear-headed. It makes you very emotional and just... So it's not necessarily, so cooling someone's temper is not a bad thing either. But, she saw, at first she saw it as him trying to take away her control, prevent her from being true to herself. But I don't think he ever meant it that way. So I like how we got to explore Marmie a little bit, and we got to see that temper she talked about having back in the day when she was a young woman. How she's a lot like, she's like Joe in some ways, like they both have a little bit of Joe in them. Our Joe has a little bit of both her parents in the same, and with Meg's a lot more temperament-wise, was probably a lot more like their dad, and the same with Beth. And while Amy was probably a lot more like their mom, along with Joe, as far as temperament goes. But, yeah, so we really get the brutality of war, and they do use the N-word, unfortunately, it does use the N-word in this book, and, it's disgusting how they treated the black slaves like they were no better than animals, especially the Southerners. They always saw them as property. And when Mr. March ends up leaving his first battalion, he goes with, he is able to get together with some Mr. Canning, who has made a deal and has gotten land and stuff so that they can create a school for the black slaves, so they will learn to read and write and receive an education, because they were deprived of that. And of course, I think we can safely assume that the people who enslaved them didn't want them to have an education, because they would rather them remain stupid and ignorant of how they were being treated. Because if they receive an education, they'll be able to fight back. They probably feel like they'll be able to fight back and be smart enough to escape and, want to live a better life. Like, if they remain ignorant and dumb, then they won't realize how much their life sucks. Although I'm pretty sure they realize how being a slave sucks, especially if you get whipped if you do something that's, they don't like, something they consider wrong. But even Mr. Canning, he had slaves and was very hard on them. And, like, Mr. March was trying to, and he was his only ally, and he was trying to fight against, March was trying to fight against all that. But he was part of society that it's hard, it doesn't like change. Our society does not change easily. And it's been this way for so long, and people just have this mindset of seeing the black slaves as less than animals. You have the Northerners who do pity them, but most of them are still almost only a little bit better, probably only a little bit better than the Southerners. So yeah, this book, of course, because it's during the Civil War, that part of it might be a little harder for people to read about. And like it doesn't sugarcoat things like Little Women did. And it's not sentimental. But Mr. March, of course, being a man of God, has a very strong moral compass and believes in the rights for all human beings, all humans to live, to be free. But he struggles against that. And he's, of course, and we do see that he's a very flawed human being, not just with fighting for these issues and making these mistakes and these impulsive decisions. And he's almost like, he fights for people, almost, wants to help people almost to a fault, because some of his actions of trying to save people get him into troublesome situations that could get him or killed, and hurts other people and can get other people killed, or he helps this one friend who needed money, and he gives him, but then they end up being, he fails this friend, and him and his wife, that's why they're poor in Little Women, why they don't have a lot of money, and they're very frugal with it, because of that issue, that him giving money to a friend and his friend not paying them back because his plans had failed. We also like how it's a slow novel, but is not super long, obviously, which I appreciate. When I borrow books from the library, I don't want to read long books, super long. Although with the Zelda Fitzgerald biography, like I said, that's the book that I'm breaking my rules for. And I don't know if I'll get the Jimmy Stewart biography or not, but that one's also pretty long too. We also, he's really trying, he also at one point is trying to decide what to write to Marmie and his daughters, because there are things he doesn't want to tell them, and that he wants to protect them. And when Marmie realizes that he hasn't told her everything, at first she's pretty pissed about it. But then over some time, when she's writing a letter to her girls and deciding what to tell them, because she doesn't want them to worry, she realizes, oh, I'm in the same predicament as my husband was, so maybe I should be a little more lenient on him and his secrets. But he does, when he's 18, he had a relationship with one of the women, this woman named Grace. He befriended her, and then he kissed her. And of course, Mr. March is a lot more of a gentleman than most would be about it. And he's like, I shouldn't have done that. And she kind of starts to fall for him, because he is very kind to her and very sweet to her and helpful when he had met her when he was 18. And like I said, they shared this moment. And they are reunited later on. And it's just a very sweet moment, but then it gets kind of awkward, because Marmie witnesses her being intimately caressing him and taking care of him. There's not a line that crosses that, it doesn't go too far, but it still looks a little makes her a little suspicious. So that was one of the things he doesn't tell his wife. His wife did not know about that, his moment and what happened in the past. And he did not think he would ever see Grace again. And it does kind of, this was kind of the part we don't see in Little Women. We know that Marmie left. And to go because he was in Washington and he had been injured, so she goes to see him, and this is what happened. This was that event. And then so what's interesting about these books is they talk about the stuff that wasn't included in the original novel, and explore these points of views and what happened to these characters during the original novel, or after the original novel, or when the original novel ended, or before the novel started. And that's like this one explores, like I said, when the girls are at home and going about their lives, and in celebrating Christmas without their father, and we see what he was doing during the war. And that's kind of, it's the same thing with the other Bennett sister. We got Pride and Prejudice, the Pride and Prejudice story, but then we see after Pride and Prejudice what was going on in Mary Bennett's life after, and we also get what she was doing, her thoughts during, her perspective during the events of Pride and Prejudice. This one we go into, we don't spend as much time with the events of Little Women. We only spend a little bit of time. We're towards the end. Because, like I said, we get the part when Marmie goes to visit him while he's in the hospital. So it was really... I have to say, my review on Goodreads is written much better than my review on here. I mean, I like filming these videos, but when it comes to reviews, I really struggle, and I do better when I can think about it. Like, but I still kind of like filming these, even if they're not very good all the time. I still enjoy filming them. So which I do not. I think I like the paperback cover better. The one I saw with, I think it looks more. It fits the look of it. Like it looks like, from what I remember, it looked kind of like the uniform Mr. March would wear. But anyway, so I really enjoyed this. I mean, it was very, I was engaged with reading about what was, what was he experiencing, and the, the horrors of war, and how, like, it always bugs me when there's stories where, like, they glorify war and talk about, if you don't want to go to war, you're a coward. And, like, it's admirable if you decide to fight in a war. And, I feel sorry, of course, I feel sorry for those who survive and are now have PTSD and stuff. But, I think punishing those are making someone feel bad, and I always, once upon a time, with Rumpelstiltskin, when he was human, and he participates in the Ogre Wars, and that always comes to mind when I think about that, because, he sees a prophecy, which maybe was a little naive of him to believe, but he gets the prophecy about, Mila having, although it isn't being technically true, it all came true, but just, I think he handled it, he didn't make the best, he could have handled it differently, but, although really could he have, because in that case he had no other options. He would either, because they were fighting ogres, and he was either going to get killed and come back to Mila in a box, or, he could injure himself and just only have, and just not fight. But he's punished for that in the book, because he's like, you're a coward, and his wife's all like, why didn't you die in glory? Now I want to be an honored widow and all that bullshit, and just abandons him and their son, and just, I mean, I don't know, in a way I think she did somewhat learn, but Rumpel was too far gone and too angry to forgive her, so, but, yeah, anyway, so what is nice about this is it doesn't, in fact, when he wants to go back because he feels like he didn't really succeed in his original mission, he's told, you're being a dumbass, you don't need to go, you need to go back to your family and take care of them, okay? You can't do anything to help. You're limited by your injuries, and your family's life, your family needs you. That's more important than you. But he's a very honorable man, and like I said, to a fault. He's always trying to help these people and do what's right, but it can get him into trouble, because sometimes his actions to do what's right and to help people can be dangerous and put lives in danger, put his life in danger, puts others' lives in danger, and hurt his family, because what if he doesn't survive? So, like I said, I think if you loved Little Women, I think you might enjoy this as an adult reading it because it's a nice add-on to the story. Like, really expands it, just like the other Bennett sister expanded, or like Longborn. Actually, Longborn might be a better comparison. Well, maybe not. I don't know. But like Longborn on the other Bennett sister did for Pride and Prejudice, this one does for Little Women, where it expands the story and you get a more mature story, a darker story that really, but also a story that adds on to it. So yeah, okay. So that is March by Geraldine Brooks. I don't know if I'll check any more because I attempted to read one of her books and I wasn't that crazy about it. But then maybe I need to just give it another shot or another book by her because either way, I enjoyed this one. It's a favorite. I did give it 5 stars. So if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post new videos, and I hope you are enjoying your reading and having a great day. Alright, bye!